Hello, my name is Chris Tag. I'm a physical therapist here at Children's Health and Andrews Institute. And today we're going to be talking about the fundamental golf terminology and biomechanics. So disclosure, I have no financial disclosures to state. Here are some of the few things that we will kind of go over today. Introduction to golf, basic golf terminology, advanced golf terminology, the swing overview, as well as the biomechanics of the setup, backswing, downswing, impact, follow through, and then tools for analysis to improve your game. A little bit of brief history, introduction to golf. Today we'll be covering importance of understanding the terminology and then mechanics of the swing to improve your overall knowledge of the game. If you look at the picture on the left, it really looks super old, but the golf is a sport that's super rich in history, dating back to 15th century in Scotland. And if you look to your right, that is a TPC in Phoenix Waste Management. As you can see, there's a lot of people there. It's like a stadium-like course. Today's date is July 15th, 2024. And then there will be a 152nd Open Championship teeing off this Thursday. The Open Championship, often referred to as a Open, is the British Open, and is the oldest golf tournament in the world. And of course, in the United States, golf has gained its popularity pretty significantly recently. But first course being built in 1888, and even though older people seem to like golf a little bit more in recent years, the younger generation has gained massive interest. So we're going to look at these two golfers here. One on the left, his name is Rory McIlroy, and then one on the right is Charles Barkley. So we'll start with a professional golfer and his swing. As you can see here, the ball speed is 181 miles per hour. Carry at about 358 yards and curve of 6 feet. And you look at Charles's swing. Probably one of the most iconic faulty swings. Very choppy, not very smooth, inconsistent in terms of ball striking, but a huge difference from an amateur golfer to a professional golfer. So whose swing is better? It's definitely the professionals. All right, here are a few of the basic golf terminologies that we will talk about. So if you look at this picture right here, and it kind of gives you a different labels in terms of what these are, but we'll start with the course layout. So you have your tee boxes. In many holes, you will have multiple tee boxes. Depending on your play and your skill set, you can start from the front tee box, as well as the professionals will start at the back tee box. And then once you tee off, and your ball will essentially land somewhere in the middle, and the middle where it's a little bit lighter green here is called a fairway. This is a short grass area between the tee and the green. And then you have your rough, which is going to be along the outside of your fairway. It's longer grass surrounding the fairway and the green as well. Next one that we'll talk about is the bunker. So this is a fairway bunker here, and then you have your greenside bunker. So bunker is a sand trap that poses an obstacle for golfers. Then water hazard, as you can see right here, body of water that can impede the play. If the ball goes into the water, there are penalties. And then lastly, the green we're looking at right here. Green is actually closely mowed area where the hole is located. So ultimately, in a single hole, you're expecting the ball to go from the tee box all the way to the green where the hole is. And then if you look to your right, we have different clubs. So we have your woods, irons, wedges, and putters. Starting with the woods, this is a driver. This is essentially what you would use as you're teeing off from the tee box. And then you have your fairway woods, which you can hit from here in the fairway. And And the hybrid is a combination between, fairway woods and irons. And the iron shots, it's a very versatile club for various, shots. And then wedges, which will be a higher lofted, meaning you're going to get the ball up into the air a little bit more, but the distance will be less. It's a specialized iron for short and high shots. And of course, around and inside the green, you're going to be using a putter to roll the ball into the hole. And then talking about the basic shots, you're looking at a drive using a driver, approach shot, which will be a shot intended to land the ball on the green. And then you have your chip shot, which is going to be a short shot, typically played, outside the green to get into the green. And then, of course, the putt, which is a shot played on the green, aimed at the hole, so you can get the ball in there. So there are various types and various length shafts and then club head sizes depending on your skill set of play. Next, we're going to talk a little bit more regarding a golf terminology. So starting with the swing terms, you have your backswing, and then you have your downswing, and then you have your follow through. Those are going to be the very, very basic swing terms. So backswing, the motion of the bringing the club back away from the ball. And then, of course, downswing is a motion bringing the club towards the ball to hit the ball. And then follow through is a continuation of a swing after striking the ball. And then you have your ball flight terms. We're going to look at the right-handed golfer here. So if you're looking at a black line here, that's a straight shot. The ball just goes straight. And then you have your fade, which is going to be a starting from the left to the right into the middle. And then you have your draw, which is going to control right to left. And then you have your hook and slice, which is hook. We'll start with the hook. Hook is a curve dramatically from right to left, and then slice is dramatic from left to right. And then, of course, it'll be exact opposite for the left-handed golfers. And let's talk a little bit more about the scoring terms. So we'll start with the par. Par is an expected number of strokes to complete a hole in most of the golf courses. And then will be par 4. And then you have your par 3, and then you have your par 5. So if you hit a birdie, that means you're 1 stroke under par. So if it's par 4 and you make the ball in 3 shots, then you have a birdie. And then if you have an eagle, which is 2 strokes under par, at par 5, if you make the ball in 3 shots, then that is an eagle. Bogey will be a 1 stroke over par, meaning at par 4, you made it in 5, and double bogey is 2 strokes over par. Par 4, you made it in 6. And you can kind of continue to increase the bogey number as you take more shots to make the ball into the cup. So why is golf swing so difficult? It's a very, very complex movement, and that happens very, very fast. So average club head speed for an amateur player, you're looking at about 96 to about 100 miles per hour. If you're hitting something that is very small, such as a golf ball size, with a club that goes 96 to 100 miles per hour, it needs to be very, very accurate. And of course, the PGA average is about 114 miles per hour, which is insanely fast. It also requires adequate joint and soft tissue mobility to properly swing. Limitations of the joint and soft tissue mobilities can alter the motion as well as the sequence, which can alter your swing. And of course, golf is a dynamic postural movement that needs to be performed repetitively and consistently to be accurate and powerful. And of course, that consistently is probably the hardest part. And then you have to create a proper neuroplasticity, and then of course muscle memory to deliver the ball consistently. And of course, it requires a tremendous hand-eye coordination and balance. As you guys know, the golf course is not flat all around. You're going to have your hills. You're going to have your leaning back shots and various planes and surfaces, which will require a tremendous amount of balance as well as hand-eye coordination. And let's go a little bit more into the rotational axis and planes of golf swing. So this is when we can start to break down the swing in itself. So we'll kind of look at it from a physics perspective. So primary vertical axis of the swing is actually going to be the spine angle. As you can see in this model here, the line going straight down is going to be your primary vertical axis. And of course, you also have a cranial cervical axis, which is going to be where your neck is in this point here. And then you have your secondary vertical axis, which will be left and right femoral and acetabular axis lines. And then, of course, you have your primary transverse plane, biscapular mechanism of the upper extremity, where your arms will be swinging and rotating around that vertical axis of your spine. And you have your secondary transverse plane, which will be pelvis, hip, and legs rotating on spine as well. So there are other axes, glenohumeral, glenoid, and then humerus moving on scapula. There's forearm pronating, supinating, and the wrist. You have your ulnar radial deviation with extensions and flexion. The golf swing and overview of this. So if you look to your right, that picture is Tiger Woods, probably the most famous golfer in the world. And we're going to start to kind of break down some of these phases and then subdivide them as well for more detail. The golf swing is a complex motion, involving a precise coordination as well as timing. So it consists of different phases, and then of course each, phase has a crucial achievement to create the maximal velocity as well as the delivery to the ball. And of course, understanding each phase can help you identify the faulty swings and so on. And let's start with the first phase here. Oops, excuse me. Starting with the first phase here, the setup, which will going to be the first picture on top as well as the first picture at the bottom. The setup is a position and stance before starting the swing. And then, of course, from this point, you have your backswing where the club is moving away from the ball. And then you will have your downswing where the club is actually coming towards the ball again. And then you have your impact, which will be a moment the club strikes the ball. And then you have your follow through, which will be a completion of the swing. So this is the basic 5 phases, and we'll break it down to 10 different positions. But we'll start with the biomechanics of the setup in itself. So starting with the setup, so proper stance and posture. Proper stance and posture, you're looking at feet shoulder width apart. Knees are slightly bent. And of course, the spine is tilted from the hips and arms are hanging down naturally. And of course, the proper setup is a foundation to a good swing. So if you start with the awful setup, then your sequence will be all wrong from the start. And of course, the alignment and the ball position, this person right here has the ball inside of his left heel. This is a driver that he is hitting, so you want the ball to be placed more towards the left foot. And of course, depending on the club and the type of swing that you're trying to create, you will place the ball in different positions. And then lastly, the grip. So there are many different types of grip. There's no right or wrong grips, but these are the 3 most widely used grips in golf. So we'll start with the 10-finger grip. So 10-finger grip is all finger grips, without the interlocking or overlapping. So as you can see here, you have your pinky to index finger, and you start with the pinky back to index finger. And then the overlap is when the pinky of the trailing hand overlaps the index of the lead hand. So this one just kind of goes over the top. So you have your pinky, and then you have your pinky on the lead arm, overlapping the index finger there. And then lastly, this is a grip that I use, and I believe this is the most popular grip, is to interlock And it's index finger of the lead hand and the pinky of the trail hand that will interlock, creating a solid and stable grip. Then let's jump into the biomechanics of the backswing. So backswing sets up the power and then the accuracy of the swing. Key movement, involving rotation, proper positioning of the body and the club. So as you start to kind of move the club away from the ball, your body rotates through, and then you should be able to create a coil and generate the power as you come down on the downswing. So key movements and the muscle groups that are involved, shoulders are going to turn on spine, which is going to be your primary vertical axis. And the hips will rotate while maintaining its stability. And then the weight will shift to the back foot. As you can see here, the arm in itself is more on the back side here. So the center of mass will essentially shift towards the back foot, creating this giant coil. And then, of course, the rotation of the shoulders is about 90 degrees, and then the hip rotates about 45 degrees. And as you can see here, this person is keeping the lead arm, which is this arm right here, the left arm for a right-handed golfer, as straight as possible. And then you will have a hinging that's happening at the wrist, but that will happen naturally. So the sequence of the movement, we're looking at more of the upper body first that rotates on the spine. And then, of course, your torso will rotate, and then your lower body will start to rotate on top of your torso. Moving on to the downswing. So the downswing is a transition from the top of the backswing to the point of impact. It involves coordinated effort of the lower and upper body. And of course, this is where you can really deliver the power to the ball. So the transition from the backswing to downswing, looking at a smooth transition and initiated by the lower body. So as I mentioned before, the sequence of movement, this time it's going to be exact opposite from the backswing. So you'll actually have a lower body that rotates first, and then torso and upper body. I would say probably the biggest difference between the professional athletes and the amateur athletes is that the sequence of movement is slightly different. So for example, professional athletes will create the most amount of power through their hips starting first on the downswing, and then their torso and their upper body going, whereas most of the amateurs will have torso and upper body that will start the downswing sequence and then followed by the lower body. And of course, the importance of the hip rotation, the hip really needs to lead the motion and then rotating towards the target. And this can potentially generate a massive amounts of power. And rolls of the legs and lower body, the weight shift actually starts to happen. And then as the weight shift happens, it will lead more towards the front foot this time, and then the knee will drive towards the target. And the biomechanics of the impact. So impact is a critical moment where the energy is transferred to the ball. So proper positioning ensures maximum efficiency and accuracy. So you really want to create a best impact. And of course, you want to create the most amount of power at impact to generate as much or create a long distance for your ball to fly. So optimal impact position, the hands lead ahead of the ball. So on the lead arm and the shaft form a straight line. So you don't want any chicken winging happening or anything that will kind of create a alter or faulty mechanics. And then club face alignment, of course, you want the club face of the to kind of hit square to the target line. This will allow the ball to fly out straight. And of course, if you have a club face that is open, it will essentially like push the ball, excessive left or excessively right. And if you have a club face that kind of comes in from out to in versus in to out, that could also create a massive amounts of spin, causing a hook or slice. And then the transfer of the energy to the ball, you want efficient transfer from the body to the ball. So as I mentioned before, you really want to start with the lower body rotating first, torso, and then the upper body coming through at the impact. and the biomechanics of the follow through. So completing the swing, the follow through, you have to really think more about ensuring the balance and having the proper finish. So it really reflects the efficiency of the phases in itself. So as you start to swing and create this impact, and then if you are losing your balance afterwards, more likely that you're altering your movement patterns. So completing the swing, you want the club to kind of continue past through the path of after the impact. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, maintaining the balance at the finish position and importance of the follow through. It really does reflect the quality of your swing. Nobody really wants to see your finished swing and you're all over the place. All right, so breaking down those phases a little bit farther. So we're gonna go over what we call the 10P classifications. So in golf, this is referred to as specific points and checkpoints throughout the golf swing. And it will kind of go through every single one of them. And then, of course, these positions help golfers understand and analyze their swing mechanics. So here's a detailed breakdown of each position. So starting with the P1, we have the address. So that is the starting position. The initial stance and setup before the swing actually begins. This also includes grip and alignment and posture and ball position, as we talked about. And this will be a very, very important start. And you have your P2. To me, I think this is by far the most important thing. P2, the takeaway, will essentially create this sequence of the entire swing. So if you have a incorrect takeaway, they could alter like a domino effect all the way down to the final, which is going to be the P10. So P2, the position of the club when the shaft is parallel to the ground in the takeaway. So if you look at Tiger Woods right here, the second picture, the shaft of the club is parallel to the ground, and this will occur in the initial movement of the backswing. And then, of course, you have your halfway back. Now we're looking at more of the lead arm here. Now, the lead arm is actually parallel to the ground, and this is roughly halfway through the backswing. That's going to be the P3. And the P4, which is the top of the backswing, the position at the very top, the club should be fully coiled with the hands high and the body ready to start the downswing. So as you can see here, hip is turned about 45 degrees, shoulder is turned about 90 degrees. And of course, your head is maintained in almost the same level and you're looking down. But as you can see here, he is weight shifted a little bit more towards his back foot as his hip is rotated a little bit farther back towards the back there. Then we will move on to the rest of the P classifications. So P5, this is a halfway down, but this time in a downswing. So the position of the club when the lead arm, again, is parallel against the ground. So initiation from P4, which was at the top of the swing, and then as the arm comes down, as you can see here, his hips are already rotated through. So which means that, from the top of the backswing, hips went first, torso went, and then the arms are starting to come down. And then you have your P6, which is going to be the delivery position. So we don't have P6 in picture here, but this is the position when the shaft is parallel to the ground. So as he starts to come down, the shaft will start to kind of straighten out this way. And then, of course, that is halfway position into the delivery, which is the impact. So the impact, which is P7, the moment the contact with the ball, this is a very, very critical position. As I mentioned before, if you're open 1 degree, meaning like if the club head is open this way, 1 degree, that can cause the ball to go 10 yards to the right or 10 yards to the left of the center. So for example, a distance of 250 yards, let's just say you're hitting with a driver, 1 degree of open face could result in a shot to go about 13 yards to the right. So, and of course, that just with minimal amount of spin and perfect wind conditions. Now, if you're 2 degrees open that could really push it out. And of course, the fairway in itself is not very wide. And of course, you want to create you want to make sure that you land the ball on the fairway, but having various open faces or closed face will kind of alter those shots a little bit. And you have your follow through, which is going to be P8, the position just after the impact. Okay, this is where the arm and the club starts to extend fully. The body begins to rotate towards the target, club shaft parallel to the ground through the swing, and then you have your halfway through, which is P9, after the impact, of course. And this is when the arm is more parallel to the ground, and then you have your finish, which is P10, the final position. So, and then, when you get to the final position, your hips should be fully rotated, body should be fully rotated towards the target. And of course, the weight is going to be in the foot in the front. So those are the 10, classifications. And of course, at each position, you can also create a subdivision of where your hand, wrist, elbow, shoulder, and all these different joints of your body will be. So creating those subdivisions within this P classification can really help you create this corrections for your faulty mechanics. And then we'll start to go a little bit more into the actual movement of the backswing. So if you look right here at the starting position, which is going to be a stance, a lot of these terms that you see here right now, they're all going to be somewhat in relative terms. What I mean by that is, as the shoulder starts to rotate first and the hip also rotates, your right hip goes into an internal rotation, but the left hip will actually be an external rotation in relative terms to the hip internal rotation. So you'll have your right hip internally rotated, and then you'll have your left hip externally rotated, and then your right pelvic rotation also occurs. Your right thoracic rotation also occurs. While those are rotating, you have your left pelvic side bend and the left thoracic side bend that occurs as well. So this is a triplanar motion that happens. So while the spine is getting into an extension, as you create this coil, the right shoulder goes into an external rotation, as you can see here. And then the left shoulder goes into a flexion and wrist extension, left forearm supination, left forearm pronation, and right forearm supination, and then left cervical spine rotation. So even though his cervical spine is staying still, in relative to his body, it is going into a left cervical rotation. And of course, this is going to be a view from the front, and this is going to be a view from the side. And you can see really here, you're creating this external rotation with the back arm here. And of course, the weight shift, the hip is turning, as well as everything is turning as well. And then pretty much all the head in itself, the head position is leveled. So there is not much of a pumping that happens up and down. A lot of it is going to be more of a axis rotation that happens through the spine and the hips. So we're going to look at the downswing mechanics. So this is going to be exact opposite of what you saw from the backswing. So as you are coming down, now the left hip is going to go into an internal rotation. And then, of course, the right hip goes into an external rotation. And you have your left pelvic and thoracic rotation that happens. And of course, the opposite side, the right side, will have the side bend that occurs. And instead of have the supine flexion instead of extension, and you have your left shoulder external rotation, left forearm supination, right forearm pronation, right cervical rotation. Once again, pretty much same thing. Your head position is same, but as your body rotates through, you're going to create the cervical spine that rotates to the right. And this is the back view, this is a side view, and then this is a front view. And you can see the weight shift that will start to happen here. And now his body's leaning and he is fully straight here with most of his weight on his lead foot, which is going to be his left foot. So looking at a little bit more of this, I would say the biggest thing is understanding these mechanics. And, for example, let's just say you have a limited, let's go back to the previous page. Let's say you have the limited external rotation of your right shoulder. So if you're not able to get to your full external rotation for whatever reason, you might have some joint stiffness or even some muscular limitations. Then if that happens, then your backswing could potentially not get to this position fully. So your backswing could just might end up right here. So, having information on a lot of these, and this will kind of create a ways for us to fix whatever is happening to your faulty mechanics as well. So, and then we'll kind of go a little bit more into the joint functionality of the golf swing. So, this is a quote from Greg Cook. He's a physical therapist. He said, during a golf swing, the body works in an alternating patterns of stable segments connected by mobile joints. So if you can see here, you want the foot to be stable, and then you want your ankles to be mobile, and then your knee stable, your hips mobile, lumbar spine is stable, thoracic spine is mobile, scapular is stable, however, glenohumeral and shoulder is mobile. So if you have too much mobility in one of these, it will actually throw everything else off. And of course, if you have too much stability in one of these, you're going to be limited in terms of your swings. So we want the stability on mobility and mobility on stability and alternating to create the best sequence for your body. So the role of fitness in golf swing. So fitness plays a crucial role in achieving effectiveness and the consistency of golf swing. As I mentioned before, the flexibility is probably one of the most important things. And of course, the strength in itself will also come into it and playing a huge factor, and balance as your body is going through various types of weight shifting and rotation through the axis. So those are going to be the key components to an actual fitness and how you can improve your swing. And of course, once you can fix a lot of the flexibility, you can work on your strength and then your balance as well. And then of course, there are a couple of things that you can work on, just very basic core strengthening, since the axis of rotation is through your spine, and then flexibility exercises, as I mentioned before. Highly recommend doing yoga. And then of course, as many people, as they get older, they'll start to stiffen up their, with their joints and their body. And then you can also work on balance drills, weight shifting. You can work on some med balls and single leg stand. And analyzing golf swing. So I would say this is probably one of the most important things. So, you can have all the information about how the body works, or, where you can analyze, how the body works. But of course, like if you're learning this on your own, it's going to be very difficult for you to see where your limitation is. So of course, studying the professional golfers can provide like really valuable insight into effective swings. As we saw Rory McIlroy's swing earlier, his swing is, ideally one of the best swings in the world. And of course, really want to recreate some of those swings to create maximum amount of efficiency as well as consistency. So, and then of course, the video analysis is by far one of the most effective, I would say, feedback. And of course, if you have a coach that can also go over those analysis, will be even better. So, slow motion videos of your swing, and you can actually compare your swings to your professional, the PGA professionals, and see where you're lacking. And of course, highlighting those key movements and the positions that we talked about in terms of the 10P movement, the classifications. So, maybe as you get to those 10 different positions, you can figure out, hey, my hand is doing this during this position, and then my shoulder is doing this. What can I do to essentially improve those positions to deliver the ball correctly every single time. So, technology in itself just offers numerous tools for analysis and also will help your game, significantly. In this picture right here, this is actually a indoor golf simulator. As you can see, you have your coach here, and then you have your person who's taking the hit at the ball. And look at all this different data that you can get from the actual the analysis, the swing analysis software. So you can get the ball speed, the club head speed, where the club is coming in from, if it's coming in from in to out to in, if you're chopping down on the club too much, if you're shallowing too much. And as you can see your ball flight. And of course, you really want to optimize some of these data to create the best ball flight. And of course, everybody wants to hit the ball straight, but also they want to hit the ball far. And with the correct lie angle of the club, as well as if you hit the ball more in the bottom or more at the toe or the heel. So all of those things will matter in terms of how you're shaping your shot. So having the video analysis will certainly give you the best technology correction. So and then of course there's also devices that are wearables. A lot of people like to wear Apple Watches and Garmin's. They give you this the wrist cupping, the where if you're during the backswing, like how fast you're coming down, if you're open, close, and all that stuff. So as the years go on, the technology kind of continues to evolve, and then it's just going to help with the players significantly. And of course, the practice and improvement strategies. I would say, effective practice routines, strategies are essential for continuous improvement. Setting goals, whether it's short-term goals or long-term goals, and creating a practice routine. I would say that's probably the most important thing. If you look on YouTube, there are very many videos of various routines that some of these players go through. For example, Tiger, has a religious routine that he goes through, and he just hits so many balls with different clubs and just kind of creates a pendulum back and forth. And not everybody has to have a same routine, but I think having a consistency, especially game of golf, is probably one of the most important things. And then of course, creating regular practice versus going out in the field and all that stuff will certainly make a difference. So balance between the range practice, short game, putting, and on course. So in conclusion, understanding golf terminology and the biomechanics of the swing is the key to really improving your game. You got to just keep practicing and stay consistent. That neuroplasticity that we spoke of earlier, it just takes about 10,000 repetitions for your brain to even just understand and create a pathway for something. And of course, that's with the perfect conditions. And the reason why the golf is so hard is because of those reasons, that inconsistency, whether the fatigue is coming in or different, the types of the balls that you have to hit, the surface that you have to hit the ball out of with different clubs, and of course the playing condition in itself. And of course, you have to hit a ball that is about 2 inches into 300 plus yards into a cup that's about, like 2 ball sizes. So, very, very, very hard in terms of trying to stay consistent. And of course, just takes a lot of practice. And of course, this is going to be a multiple series of the golf education. So, today we kind of talked more about, the fundamentals and the terminology in itself. And of course, you have to have a good understanding of the actual, understanding of the proper swings before we can start to think more about, hey, these are the faulty mechanics and what can we do to go back or, get the body back into the proper swing mechanics. So during the next series, we'll talk more about the actual faulty mechanics of the swings that you can create. And of course, what we can do to screen for those, and not only the screening process in itself, but what can we do to essentially create some kind of corrective exercise, whether it's mobility, joint mobility, muscular mobility, or even just the strength or even balance aspect of it. So we'll talk a lot more going into the next one, since we don't have to talk anything regarding the terminology. And then, of course, we want to utilize that to, get into the last series, which is going to be more on the side of performance, how to create the most amount of power, and then not only generate power, but do that consistently with the proper mechanics, and how you can utilize some of these exercises to really create the best coil so you can hit the ball straighter and longer. And thank you for watching. And these are going to be my references, and there will be some questions that you can answer at the end. And thank you so much.